Hey everyone, Kristen here with Will Travel for Vegan Food. I'm here today with the awesome Ben Srothmann, also known as Honey LABRONX, vegan drag queen. Yes. We were actually hanging out with Ben and Honey yesterday when he was shooting one of his cooking shows, which is totally awesome, and we'll put in some bits from that we did yesterday. But Ben, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got started let's start with the vegan stuff. What made you go vegan?
What made me go vegan? I guess the first inkling I ever had to go vegan came after doing the Master Cleanse. One of my best friends in the world, his name is John Oliver, and he's a psychic police detective. He actually used to have a show on Court TV called Haunting Evidence.
Wow.
Kind of like a Unsolved Mysteries, Paranormal, Ghostbusters kind of show. And he's a very, very good friend of mine. I always consider him my spiritual mentor. And over the years, I've known him kind of like 12 years now, and he's the first one who ever taught me about fasting and cleansing. And it was very appealing to me, this concept. Well, the first time I did the Master Cleanse, I felt amazing. And then immediately, when I came off of it, just started gorging, going back to my old way of eating. And I felt so uncomfortable, I felt so ill, and I told him, I need like a food plan. So the next time I do the Master Cleanse, I know how to transition off of it. And he said, well, if you ate a raw vegan diet coming off of that, that would be the best thing to do. And I'd heard the word vegan before, but I always just thought of like angry lesbians outside of some granola coffee shop with an attitude about something. I apologize for everyone that offends, but like that had always been my impression of veganism. Perhaps because that's sort of the first person who ever told me the word, or that's the first place I ever heard the term. So, and I remember just thinking, oh, I could never.
Yeah.
When I heard vegan, I just thought I could never. And I had like a list of reasons. I could probably have gone on ad nauseum with reasons why I could never go vegan. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm born to a famous dairy family, and you know, my dad ran a German restaurant, and this is the way I've eaten all my life. You know, and he recommended a book called The Face on Your Plate. And so I did the fast again a few months later. It was April of 2009 when I started reading that book. And I read it while on the fast, knowing that, okay, well, I'm incidentally vegan right now because I'm fasting. So when I'm finished with this book, I intend to stay raw vegan while coming off of the fast. But, you know, he kind of like took advantage of the fact that like I'm going to be already not ingesting animal ingredients. So I may as well read this book. And to this day, you know, I always say The Face on Your Plate. I wish I knew the guy's name. It's by Jeffrey something I can't pronounce, something that's probably easier to pronounce than I think. And I always say The Face on Your Plate was not a gross book. It wasn't a graphic book, and it wasn't a scary book. But it's the saddest thing I ever read in my life. And what the book did so brilliantly was it literally put the face back on the food. You know, or not on the food, they put the face back on the animal that I was eating. You know, when you look at what meat eaters eat, it's so detached, it's so sanitized, it's so cleaned up and breaded that like we have no connection to the life that this once was. And, you know, the book did a great job of like any animal that I'm possibly going to get my hands on to eat. Oh, right, I read about that animal. I read about that animal's behaviors and its social interactions and what that animal likes to do in nature. And I just remember reading how a chicken, you know, that spent its whole life in captivity, if it manages to break free and get away, it will resort back to the natural behaviors that it's never had a chance to even do. But somehow, even though that chicken has never been able to spread its wing, never been able to dust bathe, you know, I mean, if you're just watching, these are things that chickens like to do. I don't know why, but what they need to do is like dust their wings in dust or sawdust or dirt or mud. That's just what they want to do. And if they're not able to do it, it just feels to them like they're confined, like they are, you know, inhibited. And that these chickens will go back to their natural instincts. And it made me think, it always comforted me as a meat eater to know that, like, yeah, but these things have never known freedom. They have no concept of that. And I just realized, oh my God, I'm so wrong. These things, even though they've never known freedom, they know they're not free. They know they're confined. They feel the pain of that. And every moment of their lives, birth to death, they are hanging on to the hope that, like, maybe this will be the 60 seconds where I get free, where I break free. Maybe this will be the day, the minute, the hour where someone rescues me, someone saves me. Like, there's this undying hope in every animal that, like, maybe if I just hang on. And the majority of them will never get that freedom. And so after the fast was over, I decided, I used to do Body for Life, and I would love to go back to it. I would love to veganize Body for Life, by the way.
Yeah.
But I went back to the concept of, okay, I remember when I did Body for Life, I had one free day a week, and then I would just be a good boy all week long, and then one day a week I'd gorge myself. Now, I am addicted to Taco Bell, so I told myself I'm gonna be raw vegan for about like 2 weeks, and then I'll let myself have a weekly free day when I will not be vegan. And not necessarily vegan, my intent was to go like vegetarian for the most part, and then I was gonna go to Taco Bell one day. Well, I was about to go to Taco Bell. I'm like looking at my phone, like, where's the nearest Taco Bell? I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And my friends were like, well, we're going to this Chinese restaurant, come with us. And I'm like, fine. And I went to this like Chinese or Thai restaurant, whatever, and I'm like, whatever, I'll have I don't know what to order on that menu, because before I went vegan, my tastes, I'm like, if I'm at a Chinese restaurant, I'll have General Tso's chicken. If I'm at Thai, I'll have pad Thai. If I'm at Italian, I'll have pizza. Like, I was so non-adventurous with food. I had never had a love affair with food. And the only like foods that I had a love affair for were fast foods, because those are the only things that to my palate seemed exciting. And so I was like craving Taco Bell. So here at this restaurant, I'm like, fine, I'll just have, I don't know, pad Thai. And I'm like, and I was like, oh, right, today's my day where I can be decadent. So I don't know, put chicken, chicken pad Thai. And I thought, I've never ordered pad Thai with chicken in my life. And I thought, chicken's not what I want. I'm just ordering that because I feel like I need to eat animal right now because I haven't been able to. But at this point, I had finished the book. And I'm like, oh, chickens. I don't want to eat chickens. It's like Colleen Patrick Goudreau says, when you pluralize it, there are those animals that the name of the meat is the same as the name of the animal. So when you do you eat chicken? Sure. Do you eat chickens? I don't eat chickens. I eat chicken. And when I thought about it, like, oh my God, I'm talking about eating chickens right now. And I'm like, I love chickens. I don't want to eat this just because So I just thought, can you make it a vegetable pad Thai? And they're like, sure. Oh, there's probably still an egg, and I didn't know that. But I remember that day eating a vegetable pad Thai and being like, I don't need to eat meat to live. And I just remember at that moment thinking, like, I'm vegetarian. At that moment. It was at the restaurant Lily and Lou's on the Upper East Side, where I had a vegetable pad Thai and I decided I'm vegan. Where I decided I'm vegetarian. But I knew that vegetarian wasn't enough. And I know today that vegetarians cause more animal suffering than meat eaters if they are replacing their flesh consumption with fluid consumption, cheese, dairy, eggs, which, let's face it, just about every vegetarian out there substitutes dairy for meat, substitutes dairy for flesh. So it was with a very heavy heart I went vegetarian for about 6 months, because now my focus was on all these poor chickens and cows that are working overtime to satisfy me. So for about 6 months, I was a vegetarian, and I knew that one day I'd go vegan, but I was like, well, I don't want to take that leap. Oh my God, it's going to be... I had 2 fears that stopped me from going vegan. The fear that I would be inconvenienced, and the fear that I would feel deprived. And my friend Michael Herron is probably one of the more... Michael Herron is probably one of the stronger influences I had in going vegan. John kind of just planted that seed and backed off, told me what to read. Michael, I met him while we were working on a show together. He was the music director. And he noticed on Facebook that I had a Colleen Patrick Goudreau quote. Back in the day when you had a quote under your Facebook photo. Back in the old time Facebook, the old days where Facebook was still made out of wood. And my quote was, "Don't do nothing because you can't do everything. Do something, anything." Colleen Patrick Goudreau. I had seen that quote on Lindsay Wolf's site. Lindsay Wolf, who had the Kiss Me I'm Vegan blog, still has it. I didn't know Lindsay Wolf at the time, but somehow, like, vegan, that word was like rattling around my head like Pac-Man. And so, like, you know, my fingertips kind of wandered around the keyboard, and I would vegan things now and then. I looked at Raw Vegan Radio, and I looked at Lindsay's blog, and this girl had been vegan for a whole year. And I was like, and she survived it. She survived a whole year of veganism. And I noticed that quote on her site. So I made that my quote, because I'm like, that's an awesome quote. It's even out of the context it's meant. And Michael, when we were working on the show, he's like, I noticed you have a Colleen Patrick Goudreau quote on your site. He's like, are you vegan? I'm vegan. And I'm like, oh no, I'm vegetarian. And he's like, cool. And you know, he would always, you know, Michael Heron, he gets you with the baked goods. He always like shows up to rehearsal like, I made cookies. I made vegan cookies. He's like, I made chocolate chip cookies. Everyone's eating them. He's like, you're vegan. And so he was just a good influence to talk to. So he'd already been vegan for a year at that point. Fast forward, at this point, I had been vegetarian about 6 months, and I hadn't had a cold in like 2 years. I hadn't been sick in like 2 years. And then some lady sneezed on me, and I got the first cold I'd had in years. And I felt so gross and so sick, and I just remember thinking, I don't feel well. I don't want to eat dairy today. Because I remember a doctor saying, if you eat dairy, it's going to prolong the symptoms of having a cold. And
Really?
They said if you, I think this is like when I had like the flu or something more graphic. And they're like, if you consume caffeine, it will intensify your symptoms. And if you consume dairy, it will prolong your symptoms. So I remember thinking, I don't feel well. And I'm not used to having a cold. So I'm like, I don't want this to last any longer than it has to. So I'm not going to have any dairy. And then I remember thinking, okay, well, I'm going to see how hard this must be for Michael. I'm going to go, just for today, I'm going to go vegan for one day. It's not the healthiest thing, but I looked at PETA's accidentally vegan list, and I'm like, oh my God, Captain Crunch, Oreos, like all this stuff that's vegan. So I like went out and I just got like a feast, because you know Captain Crunch and Oreos are going to help me get well soon.
Right.
So I went out and I just like, I'm like, by that guideline, I'm like, oh, so foods I already love eating, get excited about eating are vegan. So I had one entirely vegan day, and I'm like, that was vegan? I'm like, that was wonderful. And so I'm like, all right, I can do this again tomorrow. And there was no choosing it one day at a time. From that day, I was vegan. From the day that I did it one day and saw how easy it was, I have just been vegan ever since. November 11th, and it will be 2 years this coming November 11th.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
That's awesome.